There's James's pomegranate Greek salad with some violets. And I'm going to be talking about Rick and Morty season 6. And this is the first time I've ever seen Rick and Morty, but I think it'd be worth going back to the beginning of that just to see it again, because honestly, it's funny. It's an adult cartoon.
Yeah, it sounds very adult. There's a lot of cussing and
There's
fussing.
a lot of swearing. And yeah, it's really interesting. You can sort of tell it's been influenced by other sci-fi things like Doctor Who or whatever. But in this one, it's a grandfather and son sort of, grandfather and grandson sort of combo of. But then there's other family members that go traveling around in space and time also. More in time, or not really time, like dimensions, like different, there will be different of the same person, and then, there will be another one of the same person in another dimension. So, yeah, very interesting. This one's from 2022, and it was definitely worth watching. Very funny. And I guess James is going to talk about Gordon Lightfoot some more, it looks like.
Yeah, I didn't finish it up.
Okay.
So it looks as though it was influenced by some cartoons too. It looks a bit like The Simpsons.
Well, it is. It's Cartoon Network sort of thing.
It's a little bit better drawn than South Park.
Oh, yeah.
But then I get the impression that I could produce a better looking thing than South Park.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't mean to dismiss South Park. I find it reasonably amusing. I prefer those guys that produce it. What's their name? Trey something other?
Mm-hmm.
Trey Parker or something. Maybe I'm mixing up their two names.
Mm-hmm.
But I find they're Matt Stone. I find them, I think Trey Parker's a former Mormon. Matt Stone's a former Jew. I'm just joking about that. Oh, yeah, there's all sorts of people that will never let the Jews be former Jews. Stuff like that. Unless it means like former human beings. In other words, they're only too willing to whack them. Or in the case of nifty, shifty lefties and commies and anarchists, they prefer to contract it out to their friends in Hamas, that sort of thing. Contract out the final solution for Jews. It doesn't matter. You can tell how totalitarian belief system is by their attitude to Ukrainians and Jews, particularly Jews. The Jews are canaries in the coal mine. So fascists hate Jews, anarchists and commies hate Jews, and Muslims hate Jews. The hatred goes right back to the Quran. Actually read it. And not just the Quran, Muhammad's biography, or biographies, which are apparently holy scripture for Muslims, is not as holy as the Quran. And you only have to look at Muhammad's behavior towards not just one tribe of Jews, ethnically cleansed too from the, I better not use that term because I'm sure it's just he exiled from the two Jewish tribes from the Arabian Peninsula, and then he genocided another. I better not use that term because I'm sure it's politically incorrect to apply it to Muhammad. He killed off a tribe of Jews, and then he was in the process of fighting a fourth tribe when he died, and not a few Muslims figure he was poisoned, and they blame it on a Jewish woman. And I doubt if some Jewish person would be that foolish. The person who poisoned him, if he was poisoned, and I wouldn't be the least bit surprised, would have been Omar or Umar, however you want to transliterate his name, who was his second successor, Khalifa, Caliph. So you can just tell how totalitarian the system is by how it's a necessary but not sufficient condition. No, it's a sufficient but not a necessary condition. In other words, there might be, at least in theory, a totalitarian system that isn't anti-Semitic. And of course, there'd be all sorts of people say, "Oh, yeah, the Zionist entity it's not totalitarian." Get a grip. It's actually democratic. Has its problems. Like I'm not a big fan of Bibi. But Bibi in 1984 stands for Big Brother. Get a grip. He ain't Big Brother. There's all sorts of stand-ins for Big Brother nowadays, starting with Xi Jinping and heading through Vladimir Putin, the heads of Hamas, the heads of ISIS, Al-Qaeda, if there's still, I think they've still got a presence around there. And, you scale down to, well, not really scale down, head of Iran, head of Turkey. He's working his way up to Big Brotherhood and that sort of stuff. And that's not an exhaustive list. There's all sorts of folks pullulating around in the erstwhile third world and second world, frankly. Stuff like that. So I did want to talk about something I heard about. You know where the Dakota tribe would come from?
One would imagine Dakota.
Yeah, there's a couple of Dakotas. Yeah, they're a Siouan tribe. And guess where the reserve is?
Montana.
Well, they've got at least one in Saskatchewan. Yeah? And it's called White Star. And I think you've heard of Sitting Bull. He ended up in Canada, right? As a refugee. So, like if they want to have a, like a kind of like a separate nation within Canada or in North America, they should deal with the Americans. But the first tribe or whatever, that's probably politically incorrect, nation or whatever, First Nation, to have, I think it's in Saskatchewan, to have this kind of like semi-independent status is the Dakota in Saskatchewan. No. They came there after some whites. It doesn't work out that way, okay? So if they want to have independent status, they should deal with the Americans.
Well, that concerns me. This, actually, I think it's interesting, your opinion on that, but I'm wondering if this is a move to try to control the Native Americans.
How?
Well, there's been a lot of talk on the radio about the native groups that their reserve/reservation goes across the United States and Canada border. and how certain natives have been presumed to be, and probably correctly presumed to be, transporting people from Canada into the United States, or vice versa, illegally. So my guess is it's a way to try to, because right now, what I've been listening to all this stuff basically from you, because I don't care to listen to that stuff, but sometimes on the radio when you have it on. But I've been listening to all of this, how like lately anywhere you go, it's, oh, we recognize the, well, here it's Blackfoot or Black, whatever, that we're on their land and this and that. And I think it's just, it's a lot of the time it sounds pretty phony to me.
Well, it is phony when people do that. I think they should do it, but
yeah, I do think they should do it, but it sounds like they're just being phony about it.
Pro forma.
Yeah.
It's like what most people, prayer before eating
like,
is, but for most
like
people.
In school, we used to do the Lord's Prayer, the anthem in the morning when we were kids. And I don't know how many people actually would have known the Lord's Prayer otherwise, or did anything else. Anyway, but I guess that stopped at some point. But anyway, I think all of this stuff that we're seeing that looks like it's benefiting Native people, I just kind of cringe thinking, well, what's in store for them? What's up next? Because all this phony respect that I hear, it's going to transform into something. I hate to think of what it's going to be.
So eventually we'll hear something similar about the Six Nations Reserve in southern Ontario. So you know where the Six Nations come from? They're Iroquois.
Out east?
No, they come from down south. 5 of the...
Not like Maine or something?
New York. Upstate New York.
Yeah.
They're lucky to be in Canada. Wake up and smell the coffee. Canadians have actually been relatively good to natives generally, and to natives or indigenous people from the United States. They're not indigenous to here. And when we're dealing with Siouan people, and we're dealing with Iroquois people, and I should mention the 6th one was a tribe that came up from, I think, something like the Carolinas, up to New York. So they were refugees from the flunky whites moving into the Carolinas, South Carolina, North Carolina, something like that. I don't think it's Virginia. I don't think it's Georgia. And might have been West Virginia, I'm not sure. But might have been Kentucky. But I think it was one of the Carolinas.
James actually knows, like he has, in his mind, he has maps of everywhere in the world. And he knows where, he has maps of the native.
For a while there, I could name about 300, is it 350? Let's say 250 native groups, indigenous groups in North America, and heading down into the northern part of Mexico as well. Important to know those sorts of things. It took me years to get to that.
I wish I knew, but I just haven't. There's only so much time to know things. And exactly. I am happy that I know how to make this Greek salad, because it's awesome. And I was thinking about it today. We were at the, I went to a doctor's appointment, and I was talking with the nurse beforehand. I hadn't been to the doctor before COVID hit, so they called me up and they were wondering if I still existed. So I thought, oh, okay, yeah, I better book an appointment so I still have a doctor. Because I actually like my doctor. She's very nice.
Yeah, one time I sat in, I think when you first went there.
Oh, okay.
She seemed nice.
Yeah. And she wore a mask. Well, I was there. That was very nice.
Well, they all should be.
They should be, yeah. But they don't have to anymore, as far as I know, so they might not. But she does. And she
I think in
was
hospitals they have to.
Okay.
So what was it like amongst the people up front?
They weren't wearing masks. But there were some patients that had masks on.
Patients,
I
of
wasn't
course.
the only one.
That's
But
shameful.
none of the people
Shame
who were
on you
working
folks
in
over at the Campbell
administration.
Pen. Shameful, shameful. That's
Anyway.
what I experienced over at Dyna Life,
Yeah, I know.
as I call it.
What
They
do
were
you
late
do?
starting, so I wanted to call them, like your grandma used to say, Hokey Dyna. So did my mom.
Oh, I don't know if she did, but
Well, you said it.
anyway. Well, then I must have heard
Hokey
it
Dyna.
somewhere. I don't know where.
So I want
But
to call them
anyway.
Hokey Dyna because they're really hokey. But I want to call them Hokey Pokey Dyna Life because they were late opening. It's like
It's
the
funny the
first
things that you
week
don't
of
even realize
operation.
you say. Well, anyway, so the nurse,
Hokey
she
Pokey
said,
Dyna Life.
like, she's going through all of these things with me. Do you drink caffeine? Do you this? Do you that? And she did my blood pressure, and now it's not low. Before it was so low, they were thinking of giving me something to bring it up, which that's interesting. And then now it's normal, which that's good. And I said to her, well, I'm going to be a lot healthier in the fall because, I hike. And I don't really do very much in the winter. So,
You do walk, it's just not as extensive.
yeah. And I can't dress, like, my back gets really sore, and so I can wear stuff like this, light stuff that's not putting, like, any pressure on my back or anything. But in the winter, just the layers just it's too sore.
It's hard.
Anyway, so she said, well, would you say your hiking is moderate or vigorous? And I said, well, it probably starts out moderate and then goes pretty vigorous. I said last year I did the Triple Crown, and she said, you're very healthy. And I said, well, no, because if I have any of the things you listed, then I get a migraine, like the caffeine or whatever. And you may have noticed my salad didn't have, or I may not have shown you, mine doesn't have the onions because I'm worried that that's going to trigger a migraine. And I haven't even been cooking with wine, which it tastes great to cook with wine, but I haven't been doing it because I'm worried that'll trigger a migraine. Just all of these things, right? And if I get a migraine, if it's just something, I might get a little bit, like today I have a little bit of a headache, but I can lose 3 days. I don't want to lose 3 days for a cup of tea or something. It's not worth it. So for onion in my salad. So, but then I was thinking about it afterwards, I'm like, well, yeah, she's right. I'm very healthy because it's not, you can't help certain things. Like if I knew how to permanently make it so that I could have onions in my salad or something, not have to worry about it or whatever, so that if I could permanently fix so I would never get the migraines, well, that would be great. But I don't know how to do that. So really all you can do is you do the best that you can with what you have. And like I was thinking about telling her, well, I don't really do very much in the winter, for hiking. Then I thought about it later, well, I can't wear the big layers or my back gets really bad. And, I do the best with what I can, with what I have. And so, yeah, I'm really healthy. I'm really thankful that I take the time to make an awesome Greek salad. There's no restaurant that would serve a Greek salad as good as this. This is the best Greek salad that could ever be made.
So I wanted to tie in what I was saying about the indigenous
Oh,
folks, and with other things I'm hearing. King Chuckles is getting coronated, maybe on the weekend or something like that. Something I don't think I'm going to get on my way to tune in.
no, well,
You're not even
nobody
hooked into-
nobody really likes him. So, I mean, he's been working to try to give himself a humanitarian and environmental sort of
Yeah.
image for years to make people like him. But honestly,
Well, he was
really-
a cheating chimp, cheating on.
yeah, that's what I was going to say. Everyone in the world will probably, maybe not aloud, but under their breath, they're just nicknaming him Camilla's tampon or something, right? Like nobody's ever going to really care for him.
Nor should they. Like charity or left-wingedness or whatever begins at home. I've said for a long time. And you can't be a good guy, left-wing, otherwise. If you're cheating on your wife, pretty simple. Anyway, in India, they have on CBC. They don't even care. Some people think he's a bad guy because of the British legacy of colonialism, imperialism in India. Idiots. The English, the British saved India from one of the worst empires ever to exist, the Mughal Empire. And they've been talking about, I'm reading about Viola Desmond. Oh my heavens, it's a 200-page book and it's a struggle to get through 10 pages. And it's just because my little brain can't absorb, no. It's because I just can't absorb that many lies. And I'm kind of, this body English, like if you start playing around with your eyes, it's disapproval. Plus, it means disapproval. So it's partly the onions, but it's partly disapproval. So yeah, it's kind of like alternative history of Canada. Oh, like we're bad to the blacks, and like what happened is, here's the news flash. The English, the British, killed off slavery. For a while they practiced it, but they're the ones who shut it down. Wake up and smell the coffee, you stupid pieces of work. But if you're one of the stupid pieces of work, what I really mean, and what you really are. But you should know.
Do you want the rest of my lemon juice?
Yeah, please. So the Brits shut down slavery. They shut it down. Muslims were doing it. People themselves, the people who were most involved with the slave trade, up until quinine was used by explorers and stuff like David Livingstone was the first white guy I gather to go into the middle of Africa. He was shutting down the slave trade. The slave trade involved black people selling their own into slavery. And the people who shut it down were the English. Got that straight? No, I know you don't. I know you don't. Because that's politically incorrect, but factually so correct. They shut it down. And the British monarchy, I'm not thrilled about it. But, when you look at what it symbolizes, it doesn't symbolize slavery. It symbolizes, for me, and it should for you, shutting down slavery. Because, the Brits practiced, or at least the English practiced it, for quite a while. But they eventually shut it down. Every other culture involved in it didn't shut it down. The Muslim culture is still practicing it, and will be practicing it much more extensively, much more openly, if it weren't for the British tradition, which says, hey, not the whole world, the British tradition world is watching you. In other words, the democratic world, and it's a very small world nowadays. It's just England, or Great Britain, Holland, which is an exception, United States, Canada, New Zealand, and Argentina. We're watching you. How much time?
4 minutes.
4 minutes. We're watching you. And you've got nifty shifty lefties going and saying, wow, like you were practicing slave. You nifty shifty lefties, you who are old enough, were apologists, and you still are, frankly, for the Soviet Union. Nietzsche called it. He said, when you get rid of Christianity, when you get rid of God, what will happen? People influenced by him showed. The Nazis, there are all sorts of people say, hey, Christians. They practiced satanic marriage. It might as well have been satanic marriage. They didn't believe in Christianity. They believed in Germanic myth, which is like Norse myth. Okay? Got that straight? And they brought in slavery big time. But the people who brought it in before were the Soviets. They were bringing it in big time before Hitler ever came to power. Slavery. Enslaving people to death. Yeah, the Nazis did it, but they're not the first in modern times. What happens when you get rid of Christianity? I don't have to tell you, the commies were against Christianity. They'd kill off priests. They'd sack churches. They'd destroy churches. They'd turn churches into things like museums to atheism and stuff like that. I don't care what they do when it's like that, but when they, at the same time, when they introduce slavery, it shows they don't have any respect for humankind. Christians, however bad they've been in terms of witch hunting, in terms of burning people at the stake and so on and so forth, nothing by comparison with the commies and the Nazis. And understand, the Nazis were socialists, okay? They were just national socialists. All sorts of national socialists all over the world, all over the third world in the wake of World War II. And history bears witness to the evil of that kind of regime. Nazi commie or just plain commie. Evil, evil, evil stuff. Evil empire. The axis of evil. You guys can laugh about it, but you're part of it, you stupid pieces of garbage. Now, I'm not talking to the majority of people who are actually reasonable, rational, watching this, but I'm talking to the nifty, shifty lefties who started off being apologists, and it's people like George Bernard Shaw, Beatrice and Sidney Webb, Jean-Paul Sartre, covering up for the crimes of the Soviet Union back in the day, and then covering up in the 60s the crimes of the Soviet Union, crimes of Mao Zedong. Now you're covering up the crimes of Islam going back to 622 AD. Now you're covering up for it. You're saying